things almost right away. So the first thing I want to show you guys is where the actual material for adjustments is kept. So on our team site, on our big P&G Coupa team site here, under the finance and inventory control channel, which you guys should all have access to, there is a files button right here. And under the files button, you'll see that there are a couple different folders. The finance and inventory control training material folder is what you want to click on. And then in here, you'll see that this is the inventory and finance basics handout. So this is useful not only for adjustments and how to get those done. This also has all of the steps of month-end inventory cycle counts. It also has just some basic information about how Coupa functions at like the finance level for reporting purposes and things like that. So it does have some pretty useful information in it. So you may be asking yourself, what is an adjustment? Because in Stratton Warren world, adjustments are very different than Coupa world, okay? So in Coupa world, adjustments are basically any time we are manually changing the on-hand balance of an item in your warehouse, okay? So that's like a bulk statement there, but it includes things like spoilage, shrinkage, breakage, miscount. Cycle counts are technically called adjustments. If you return something from an outlet, so let's say your chef accidentally orders 10 instead of 1 and they want to return 9 cases of something or 9 bottles of something to your warehouse, they have to get your approval first. You guys, warehouse leadership, if you are wanting to take that back and you and your chef agree that you're going to take it back, putting that item back into inventory is a manual change of the on-hand balance, so it's an adjustment. When we receive something into inventory and we decide, you know what, I'm going to send that back to a supplier. So let's say we order 10 cases of something and the chef comes to us the very next day and he's like, we're going to stop using this. We changed the menu. Okay, that's an example. That is, we call our supplier and we're like, hey, we didn't mean to order this. We want to return all 10 of these. We are manually taking that out of inventory, so that's an adjustment. So those are all different kinds of adjustments, and they all follow pretty much this same process, okay? So they're going to start here in the warehouse with you guys, and you guys are going to make the decision. You're going to decide, like, you want to take it back. You're going to make the decision you want to send it back to the supplier. You are going to accidentally break something and know you have to take it out of inventory, right? So it's going to start with you guys, and then you're going to notify your finance partner. In this particular example, we call them the IPC, which is basically just a shortcut for whoever is helping you do inventory control. So you're going to let your inventory control partner in finance know via email, and then they are going to follow this process to do the actual adjustment in Coupa. Okay, so in this deck, we do show you a couple of examples of what those could potentially look like. So there's the out of inventory for spoilage shrinkage. There's the into inventory as a return from a supplier. And there is a transfer out of inventory as a return to the supplier. So there's different examples here, so you can kind of see how they should be formatted. The biggest thing is to remember you have to give the inventory control person enough information so that they're transferring the right thing out of inventory. So in this case, we're not only giving them the item number, but the item name. We're giving them how many, the type of transfer, as you can see, is in all of these emails, right? So that is the information we need to include to make sure that whatever transfer or adjustment they're doing, it is to the right item, and we're not just saying, hey, will you transfer that case of beer out of inventory? Because that's not helpful. So those are kind of how things start. Now, once your inventory control person gets your email, so let's talk about that for a second. Why do inventory adjustments have to be done by someone from finance? Why can't I just do that as a warehouse person? That's a good question. and really valid, right? Because in Stratton Warren, I know several of you that were doing your own adjustments and doing your own cycle counts. So Coupa works a little differently in the fact that we have to have controls in place, right? To kind of make sure we're doing the right things, make sure we're not just off like making mistakes and no one knows. That's pretty much true for every process ever designed in the whole world. There's always backups. So in Coupa, as a warehouse supervisor, I basically order whatever I want into the warehouse, right? There's no secondary approval there. I can order $5,000, $10,000, $50,000. There's no verification. I didn't used to be able to do that in Stratton Warren. There was always someone double checking that or participating in that process. Because Coupa allows you to place those orders very quickly and gives you the authority to place those orders, there has to be a control somewhere that kind of helps us maintain the integrity of that on-hand balance. So the manual adjustments are where that control lies, and having a second party participate in those and make sure those are valid and they make sense is where that control sits. Okay, so just kind of keep that in mind when you guys are working with your finance peeps to do adjustments. So in Coupa itself, to do an adjustment, they're almost always the same. And what I'm about to show you is going to be an action that's performed by your finance partner. But this is how it's performed. And then we'll actually see what it looks like because they all show up under your inventory history report. Okay, so they're going to go to the inventory button or the inventory tab in their Coupa, and this is test. If you can't tell from the bright pen red topper here. So we go into the inventory tab, and when we find the item that we want to adjust out, so here we're gonna just pick this beer example. I broke a case of beer. It happened. I dropped it. So there's two ways to perform an adjustment. The first way is with this little adjust balance wrench. That is always the way that you want to perform an adjustment. You'll see that there's a sub tab here that says adjust inventory. Please do not use this. If you use it, you have to fill out a bunch of things manually to get the adjustment to perform correctly. If you use the wrench, it automatically pulls a lot of that information from the on-hand balance tab here. So it's a much faster, much more efficient process, and there's far fewer mistakes that are going to be made if you use the wrench as opposed to performing it this way. So in the wrench, I just want to select. This is the same action that you will take if you were doing spoilage, shrinkage, return to supplier, return from chef, doesn't matter. So when you're in here, it automatically fills these out. The adjustment code, you would just select the correct adjustment code, whether it's return to the warehouse from a chef, return to the supplier from us back to like US Foods or Cisco, whether it's account variance, we just discovered it's wrong and we need it corrected, or whether it's shrinkage, spoilage. And then it tells me this is the available balance. So I am allowed to put out or take in whatever amount I want. In this case, I broke a case of beer. So I'm removing one case. So it's going to be a -1 because I'm taking one case out. And then in the attachment section, because I am very much a record keeping kind of person, I would attach the email here that someone sent me. It's not necessary, but it's always good to have information in the system. You can also text here. So like if I do not technically have any approval authority according to the approval matrix, this case may exceed my approval authority. So I may have to get my head of finance or my controller to approve this transaction. I could also attach those approvals here. And then once I'm done, I will just hit save, and the system is going to record this, and it's going to take one case out of my inventory and it's going to charge it to my spoilage account. Okay, so all of those are the same in terms of steps. It's going to tell me my inventory is adjusted. Now, we did talk about the fact that these adjustments are in fact on the inventory history report. So if I go to setup and I go down to my inventory history report, which basically tells me every transaction in the history of my inventory, which is nice. This transaction is going to show up as an inventory adjustment. It's going to tell me who did it, and it's going to tell me what quantity was adjusted in or out, right? So you can see it does give me that information here, so I can always track those adjustments when they're done, how much was done, etc. So when you guys are looking at your inventory history report, that's what you're going to look at to find any of those adjustments that you guys have requested. So that is kind of the basics of adjustments in Coupa: why, who, how, all that good jazz. So hopefully this has been helpful.